Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's weekend frivolity, the Broiler Chicken Show. I suppose we probably ought to change the name of the show. I did see a couple feedback. And Google Analytics likes this thing to be called something else, that kind of thing, but I only call it the Broiler Chicken Show because it harkens back to good old days of trading futures contracts. But welcome back to the frivolity. And as you can see, actually, nice improvement over recent shows of this screen. You can see our dashboard is now starting to fill out quite nicely, getting some really cool data. The purpose of this weekend show really isn't to go into broader market stuff too much. I do that sort of Monday to Friday, and of course on the site we do a daily video Monday to Friday, about an hour and a half long. But I am really liking what I'm seeing with data, and this kind of corresponds with what I'm seeing. The ETFs and the indexes are really, really going for it here, but I don't know whether the broader market is supporting that move. But great to see the dashboard is filling out. Also, I like to keep an eye on sort of who's outperforming and who's underperforming, so these kind of tools really help me. We even have widgets here that that track the crypto market. This is a cool little widget that Seward has in the list, this fear greed index. Not quite sure. I think there is actually a link to their website, so feel free to take a look at them. But it's interesting, this reading 39 here, because I actually I like that kind of thinking, because I do see that there are names popping here, and of course once this gets to moon Lambos, most of the opportunities are gone. So actually this, I think it's a handy little tool site members can take advantage of. Big part of this weekend show is to talk specifically to the level oneers. They just finished their class. Great session with Wookie. Sounds like you got a bit of a cold bug, so take it easy, Graham. But I highly encourage everybody to in the level 1 program to try and get used to journaling. And we even have cool little tools on your dashboard where you can track a journal online. How are you feeling? What did I see? Did I learn anything? And then of course in this particular case, I've been using this to log sort of my verbal diarrhea of trades and how I'm feeling and all that kind of stuff. So sort of new tool, which actually I think is really cool, an integration of the chat server that we have on the site. Just an FYI for level oneers and really everybody on the site for that matter. Seward's built a tradie signal room, so as these trades come along, and you can see I've been just kicking ass in the market, not, but I do like the fact that we have this trade reporting system working nicely here. Still working out the bugs of what market I have to use to pull down menus and stuff like that. So bear with me, everybody, but it's good to see that this automated notification system is up and running. So be sure to check that room out. And the cool part about it is, as we've sort of talked about in the daily briefs of late, but I don't see it on here yet. But Julian's also going to get a room going for his RSI models, which is totally cool. So we're taking advantage of the developer cycle. It's slow and it's steady, but we are making progress. Super stoked to see that. Level oneers, I do know you had a volume impetus session this past week. So kind of a tough concept to wrap your head around initially. By all means, use these weekend sessions. I know a few of you over there on the YouTube page. I'll see if I can highlight volume impetus signals if I happen to see them as we're going through the charts here. So I do see like Cobus, you're over there on YouTube page. I know you've been very active here this morning. Take advantage of this time. This should be a nice dovetail. I mean, Grim does such an awesome job, and I think he probably, ironically enough, I think now he's at the point where I think he can answer the questions better than I can, which is great. I mean, that's awesome. I've said repeatedly from day one, my job is to make you people famous. And if I can make the Wookiee famous, then that's what I want to do. So anyway, point here is this is a dovetail. If you do have questions, I've got the YouTube page question open room there. Feel free to ask, right? And, I noticed that there's a bunch of people here in the lounge. A lot of these are our OGers that are just awesome people. It's great to see them on the site. And, that's one thing I absolutely love about TRI is we now have a pretty good core of people that they love this. It's in their blood. They're just day in, day out. And all we do is just keep posting trade setups. Just day in, day out. It just doesn't end. And the great part about it is, this is what makes a horse race, in the market. At any given point in time, you can have one person posting a short trade. This is my setup. These are my reasons. And then another person can say, well, I'm working this plan. Actually, I'm long right now, and these are my reasons. And, you just never know what the hell's going to happen in the market. And it was great to see, a couple of our OGs were in the lounge this weekend posting long setups. And, Bitcoin had a nice rally here, and they got paid. And that puts a big smile on my face. Sadly for my setups though, and this is a good analogy. Nobody's going to be right 100% of the time, but sometimes you zig when you should zag, and sometimes you zag when you should zig, and you're just not seeing the market clearly. Try and journal that kind of information, log it, get it out. Don't carry that subconscious baggage with you. We're just humans, it's just another day in the market. And all you can do is just, try and follow your plan. And if the setups come in, you just live with this plan. If after a number of reporting period, and I always recommend that it's a good idea like quarterly, once every 3 months, maybe go back, and that gives you, it gives whatever setup you're working 90 days, right? And so, you might find after a 90-day reporting period, you're kind of like, I'm not taking enough setups. I got to find a setup that's more active. Maybe you're like, well, I'm trading way too much. I got to dial it back. Or, heaven forbid, in this market state, this setup sucks major horse whats. And I gotta change my approach given the market state. So for now, and actually it's really cool because on the site now we're starting to get up. There's Julian's trading plan. I've got a cute little bot setup that I used to use as a funded prop trader that I'm sure everybody's probably familiar with. If not, then watch some of my old videos. So I've actually got this trading plan up and running, and I'll call a spade a spade. Put 2 trades together so far on this, and like I said, I've got issues with labeling, so I have to figure out how to label this stuff correctly for site members. But for the public, just full disclosure, FYI. My recent 2 trades that I've put on over the past couple of weeks. My first sort of long shot was this idea that I was thinking I wanted to front run potential AB equals C to take us up top. So I started to build a position. I got about maybe, I don't know what the correct math was, maybe 3/5 of my long position on, and then the market just crapped out and I bailed. And, yeah, especially if you're going to make yourself public, oh my goodness, you leave yourself open to this dramatically. But of course you have like the smart asses that come in and go, oh, you suck, man. And, well, I'm actually hunting longs right now, so way to go, loser. So, it's a trader's life. And this is one of the reasons why my old prop firm guys were like, Brian, you don't want this shit. You don't want it. But, I'm a glutton for punishment. I think I'm a masochist by nature. So, when my setup failed, of course, I heard it loud and clear. But it's just another setup. Next bus in 10 minutes. What was interesting was on this failure here, we had a very tight little trading range develop following that, where we actually had sort of a test of these old highs and then some signs of failure. And I actually strapped on a short because off of lower time frames, this is a potential AB equals CD. And this morning, I was politely told, sorry, Brian, your thesis is wrong. Get out. And I did. And the good part about it is, if you're going to trade this stuff, you got to understand what kind of life you're getting into. So I had alerts set on 2 different levels, and so the computer starts going off. And when that happens, of course, you just enter your exit at appropriate level and just wait for the fill and stuff like that. It's a bit anxiety filled, but I do find that if you wait for like stop loss orders to be hit in this space, you can get absolutely destroyed on fills. So, it was interesting. If we look at this, was where I had the trade on OKCoin. I shorted this M structure, and then I added to the trade on this little reload zone level. And what was interesting last night was like, well, nope, that didn't stop me out. And then the market started to work its way down. And it was it was fascinating. Of course, this is a New York kill zone. So if they are going to put in a bottom, this is exactly when it's supposed to happen. And we were watching through the lounge. We were watching this one candle in particular as it was happening. This one doji bar right here, I think, defined basically the trade. And it was fascinating how, after all that was said and done with my reload zone offers filled and, bot levels traded, that. Talk about the market just teasing you, eh? I mean, basically, after going through, am I going to get stopped out? I got to have patience and discipline. Wait for the level. Okay, we made it. That comes right down to my actual trade level and teases me and sort of says, Brian, are you going to be right? Nah, I don't think so. And woohoo! Off the other direction. And like I said, there were people on the site that, when they see this kind of action happen, you can see the W, you can see the pullback, you can see the reload zone, you can see the 78.6. This is even a reload zone within a reload zone. Then a polite little doji there. So ironically enough, I could see the long setup. But I was working a short thesis, and as long as this was still working, I was just going to stay with that. And I was very politely told, sorry, Brian, you're wrong. And, of course, I'm going to hear it from all the Twitter people and YouTube and stuff. But, hey, I'm an open book. So what that means is when I'm wrong and I have to take a loss, I got to show you guys. This is what it looks like when you lose money in the market. So it was interesting on this event. The market spiked up here. Like I said, alarms went off and stuff like that. And I actually didn't have that hard of a time. Just that, my risk level was to 910 on this trade. So I just simply said, exit the position at 910 or better. And basically I was filled. But if you had waited for a stop loss order, sometimes on OKCoin and these crazy, mechs and stuff like that, stop loss orders get triggered and you get the screwiest fills. So just, if you're trading crypto, just be cognizant of that. But if anything, this is a really good example of, I'm not, if anything, I'm proud of, logging, diarizing, journaling, being the demonstrator of best practices. But, call a spade, lost money here. So it is what it is, and that's basically what I'm living with here this morning. So with all that said, I might as well just get it out of the way. Thought I'd just sort of go through sort of the higher time frames, drill back down to the lower time frames, sort of give you an idea of what I'm seeing here on the corn. Of course, it's just Brian's opinion, and caveat emptor. What I think one thing I did notice, kind of why I made reference to this to start this conversation off today, was actually I think there's a really really good opportunity within the altcoin space right now. And I like to follow the OGs, the really good traders, on Twitter and stuff. And like these guy Josh, he loves his Adam and Eve setups and his Ichi Boom Boom. But this Matoshi Kaku guy, watch him. Very good traders. I mean, this Phil Bitcoin guy. I actually wanted to reach out and ask him to come on the Daily Brief and do an interview with us. We've been sort of throwing around sort of hellos and, maybe we'll get together. So I'm still sort of working away on that. Maybe, site members, if you watch this later on, just give me some feedback whether you really would like to have him on the show. And that'll motivate me to get off my butt to put that together. But anyway, these guys, they're all, going, hey, pay attention. Hopefully you guys, even YouTube people watching this for so long, you start seeing, well, gee whiz, that kind of looks like a W. That's kind of what that Beamish guy likes to see. And what I really liked about this is, and the response that I gave to this was... I love how like a good trade is a good trade is a good trade. And, regardless of what's your perspective, and you could see that, they have very different perspective of price action. They're using very different tools than I use. And really, there is no right or wrong way to do this thing called technical analysis and trading. What the right way is what works for you. But just the point being that, from my perspective, I look at this and I go, holy Jesus. So in a weird sort of way, I actually kind of think that there's a really interesting opportunity developing here within the crypto space. It feels like, number one, this bear, it's been like, 2 years just of one-way directional sort of movement in the tide. We've been sort of talking on the site about lots of little setups. I mean, I love this Doge setup. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. So, the head and shoulders, the big breakout, draw your reload zones. Notice the tag of the head and shoulders breakout level. And for level oneers that just went through level one, I think I probably should just, for the record, I think I really should speak to this. For my 30 years working in the business, I've never really heard anybody talk about M tops or W bottoms as the breakout level being the neckline. That was a bad habit that somebody on our site that was working away on the site sort of got into a while ago. And it seems to have gotten some traction. It's a very convenient way to describe the candle body closes, structural levels, but it's not technically neckline. And really, when you use a term like neckline, what you're really talking about is something like a range breakout, like a head and shoulders has a level that's been traded to repeatedly. And literally represents a massive horizontal support and resistance level. So this is like that neckline concept. And I did notice in the level 1 class some people were talking about like this as a neckline. And I don't necessarily agree with that terminology. I think it's a little bit dangerous for us to intermingle those. So let's just call this, the double top fail level, right? Or the double bottom breakout level. I think we got to lose that sort of neckline talking, but that's just a message to site members. But Doge here, really good example of just reload zones, hunting original market structure, and what a pretty little W that's come in here. Obviously, like we said repeatedly, there's no guarantees in any of this, but statistical odds that when you see reload zone tags, when you see W's, when you see checks of original structure bottoms, statistical odds that the market's going to actually hold these lows and turn back up are in your favor. And that's really all we're doing here. So we're just trying to play edges, right? What's the statistical odds of us, winning versus losing in this scenario if we pull the trigger now? So, that's just one example, Doge. I was tweeting out. Well, actually, you know what? Before we go into altcoins in detail, let's just do a quick overview of the corn. Try and figure out what's going on here. The first thing I think I want to sort of start off with is we've had this debate raging, of course, within the community. Tom Lee's long-time conversations about seeking alpha and correlation. I've believed for quite a while that Bitcoin and especially altcoins and the sort of junior part of the blockchain conversation is very much venture capital, and the behavior that I saw around all these crypto exchanges and Lambo talk and all that kind of talk, very typical sort of like in Canada we have like the venture exchange. They used to have a guy, and any Canadians watching this, there used to be a guy called Murray Pesum, and he would have loved the altcoin space. It would have been his like playground, his dream landscape. So any Canadians that are my age, if you can remember Murray Pesum, this same environment that we see in crypto and altcoins, not so much Bitcoin anymore, but definitely within the altcoin space, is classic venture capital. So I'd always sort of made the argument, and of course, is Bitcoin a gold proxy? Is it a store of value proxy? Is it a growth proxy, scarcity of supply, and what's the? There's a really popular metric that's going around these days, stock to flow, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. So if you buy the gold scarcity store of value story, then I think that really what you're talking about at any given point in time, especially in the gold market, I used to use this all the time, is what's the cost of production, and you want to try and buy those gold miners when their cost of production is substantially lower than the spot price. That's their profit margin. And if you see trends in either cost of production is dropping or spot price of gold is rising, then you should see that reflected in the stocks themselves. Or is it this stock to flow conversation and the sort of whole new world order? Bitcoin is scarce, and there's only so many Bitcoins out there, and there's so many people in the world that everybody's going to want some. Then you start, coming up with astronomical price levels. So, I have this raging debate going on. Is Bitcoin a risk-on asset, growth, stock to flow, all that kind of talk? Or is it a risk-off, store of value, gold, that kind of talk? And Bitcoin's been giving me some really mixed messages of late. Now, I do notice that the correlation is very loose. Sometimes you get like stocks and, emming out and Bitcoin emming out. Crude has some sort of violent move because, there's these events that happen in Saudi Arabia out of the blue kind of thing. Sometimes I see, Bitcoin in this case headed lower, and yet the crude and the stocks actually headed higher. But on balance, I do believe that it is considered a growth asset at present. But there's a little bit of a disconnect here. You can kind of almost see the similar behavior of the risk-off assets in the Bitcoin price here to a certain degree. So this debate is constantly raging for me, and within that context, of course, then there's always the people that are like, well, this asset's completely manipulated and it doesn't have any correlation at all. But I still lean towards Bitcoin and crypto being very much sort of a risk-on proxy. And I do see a lot of sort of, believe it or not, call me crazy, I actually do see a lot of sort of groundwork laid for actually equity to do relatively well over the next 6-8 months. And then, of course, we happen to have a Bitcoin halving event coming up in the spring. So, generally speaking, that's a positive, not a negative. And people's attention will be more focused on sort of, what is the cost of production? And then, of course, that means it's rising. And then people start talking about, inflation, built-in inflation. Oh, this thing's guaranteed to rise in price over time. Well, why don't I buy some? Right? And then the bid price gets bid up to crazy levels and the game goes on. So, in a weird sort of way, and I do notice in a lot of stocks, especially like the energy sector and the pharmaceutical sector, we're just seeing some dramatic outperformance from certain names. The shipping sector was coming alive there about a month or so ago. Some of our infrastructure plays, like we banged out a double on our options trades on CenturyLink, boring blue chip stocks. The market really is, I can see what's going on here in stocks. I can see it in the broader market. So, maybe thinking higher Bitcoin price here isn't outlandish given that backdrop. But we'll see what happens. I'm a little curious as to where this disconnect here of late. Also noticed too, like, holy moly, the situation in Hong Kong is just getting absolutely out of control. And now the focus, they're trying, and I don't know whether it's trying to, change the focus, but I'm hearing Taiwan talked a lot about lately these days. So, the temperature's definitely turned up. And I also heard too, there's a fear, and it came out of Taiwan saying that, hey, if the economic data continues to look crappy out of China, don't be surprised for the Chinese government to actually ratchet up sort of international incidents that sort of take the population's attention away from how crappy the econs are. And so the Taiwanese leader guy's like, be careful here. This is our lives you're playing with here. Oh, God. Never a dull moment, I'll tell you that much. So what does that play in the crypto story? I'm not quite sure. Student of the market, and that's just sort of Brian's rant. I don't know whether that's helpful or not. Okay, so when we look at the Bitcoin price itself, and like I said, that Phil Bitcoin guy on Twitter, I really liked his analysis. I also saw another really cool piece done, and I believe it was, I don't know whether it was our level 1 class. I also saw that it might have been posted in the lounge too, but somebody also posted another really cool video. They used this same sort of thinking, this this sort of logarithmic curve thinking for price prediction. If anybody on the site happens to remember that gentleman's video just off the top of their head, the one that I'm talking about, it was being passed around the site over the past few days, week or so. I was really impressed with that person's analysis too, and if somebody does pass it, find it here in the Hangout or on the site in the lounge. If they post the link, I'll post it on the YouTube page. But I'm still sort of stuck in this sort of boobity boo, boobity boo, boobity boo, boobity boo, kind of yellow, purple sort of correction bands, if you will. And, I found it interesting myself that, if we do reload zone levels off of just this most recent down move, notice that would basically take us up to tag that purple line up in that area. And then reload zones on the downside, gee whiz, that takes us right down against the yellow line, which I thought was so cool because it's almost like, fibs and sort of the way the universe, the matrix works aligns with this kind of thinking just almost perfectly. So in a weird sort of way, it's kind of like this is where you want to be selling and this is where you want to be buying. And really right now we're kind of just stuck in no man's land. Not really in a great place to be a net seller. Not really in a great place to be a net buyer. So in a weird sort of way, it does, for me, kind of explain the choppy price action in here. Why I'm not really getting trending continuation signals is, we're stuck at the middle of a range. And the irony of it all is that, if we change this to good old Gann, he would suggest that we should probably just park ourselves right around this 10,500 area and just consolidate. This is done off a logarithmic chart, so it does look slightly different than just a arithmetic chart. Just be aware of that. So, here we are right in the middle of a very wide trading range. And, that's really the simple overall message. If we start looking at sort of things like, the weekly charts off of, with moving averages and all that kind of stuff really tricked out. I've been following this chart for quite some time. And I had been sort of talking recently that I was kind of hoping to see trend continuation, this AB equals CD, to take us up into that shorting location. And I took some long shots off of these tails. That tail was broken at the end of last week. And so I was politely told to exit. And I did so. And really, there shouldn't be any emotion involved. And it's just, you know what? This low thesis that I had failed. And so I just got to walk away. I do know that, some people were reminding me on Twitter and stuff that they were actually starting to hunt long trade setups off of sort of a test of that previous high. And it looks like, they're getting paid. So congratulations. But this does paint what I call an inside bar reversal. So the loss of this low for me is technically a very weak sign. The problem here, of course, is where, your trading range, notice, like professional traders and all that, reload zones. Where are they most interested in getting short markets? That's that reload zone. And notice that that's going to be nothing more than just an exploration of these wicks. So the fact that we just didn't fall out of bed here, and I had... On the loss of this low, we had consolidated and then head faked our way lower. I strapped on a little short, anticipating the dump back down against these sort of candle body lows and the tag of this tail. That did not materialize. So, if I did want to short, where should I be thinking now? And I'm kind of thinking that we could easily bounce our way right back up into this level here. I really don't mind the idea of continuing to hunt longs, but the fact that this inside bar has failed means what I really want to see is I want to see this candle finish. Then I want to see next week paint at absolute worst an inside bar within this range, which is going to be messy anyway. And then the week after that, so that'll be basically a week's time, we'll see whether any sort of new fractal formation can come in and negate this inside bar. But that's going to take like I said, a good couple weeks to develop. It is Sunday, and it's Sunday morning. So this still has another, 6 hours to go till the end of this candle. Who knows what the hell this thing's going to look like at the end of the day. I do find it really fascinating that as we were down at the lows earlier today, the moving averages actually flashed across here, which I was quite surprised at. It's also a really good testament that you should wait for the candle actually to close before you start getting too rah-rah one way or the other. And as a result, these moving averages have yet to actually cross. So we're sort of back to that walking the tightrope kind of thing. Do we actually roll over here? I think there was a head fake, and like I said, the inside bar did fire. So on balance, I have to be thinking lower. But we haven't like flashed actually like a trending signal. That's it. Throw in the towel. She's toast. And I'm kind of thinking, over the short term, nice rally back up into like, this is a stamp on the weeklies, 97, 9,800. Maybe even a kiss of the 10,000 from the other side. That wouldn't be totally out of the question. So, weekly chart is flashing a bearish sign for me right now. If we go look at a little lower time frame, this is now zooming down to that 4 hour. As I had sort of pointed out recently, I took a long shot off of this W. It failed, told to get out. Hunted some shorts in here. They got politely told to exit. So what am I sort of thinking right now? Technically, this is still this bullish bot kind of concept is still alive as long as 66% of the range holds. And I personally I like to see 3 lows to work with. This has carved out a nice double bottom in here. And if we go down to like the 1 hour and lower, like I said, there were people on the site who were actually trading this range and traded that through the weekend to the upside, and they got paid this morning. So, way to go, TRIers. But if I'm thinking this sort of big AB equals CD is still on the table, and I break that range apart, notice that the 25 level happens to set right back up off of the original level I was hunting. I don't think that's an accident. Also notice too that that's the POC. So this obviously is where the majority of people in this market are either long or short. So I think what has to happen is we have to have like a push against that level from the underside. And if you draw reload zones, you can kind of see that level starting to emerge. All right, if we go boom, bada boom. There's the reload short zone. So if institutions were going to step in and defend, where are they likely to do so? You can see how that basically is the POC. It is this original, very well-defined market structure top. So a move up into this area, it wouldn't shock me one bit. And notice, like I said, there is that new bot level. So, we got one low, rallied away. Put in a very tight second low. I'd actually like to see this fill out a little bit more. Well, we'll see how it goes. This is a pretty wide range. So, like I said, there are people on the site who are actually trading this range within my bigger sort of thesis well, anyway, there were people on the site who were trading this range. I thought this was really interesting that if I zoom out and go A, B, C, D, that paints a level down into here, which is going to be like reload zones, which means we have to start thinking ranging rather than trending. So then I sort of said to myself, okay, well, if this was one move, a range, and it was AB equals CDing, where would price have to rally to in the short term to have that line up with this objective? And it turns out that just so happens to be right off of that mountain man level. So me personally, I'm just going to be watching how we act up against this. You notice this is a trend line coming off the top here. This should be an interesting sort of, like window right in here. How do we act through here? I also noticed too on the lower time frames, we don't really have any signs of divergence yet. So I don't know whether this up move is really done in the short term. And also too, what I thought was really interesting, so we'll finish off that divergence. thought. Like off the hourlies, you had a big volume breakout. So, for us to know that the bulls have fallen back asleep, we need to start seeing M's. That's kind of, level oneers. And I don't know, like I know that Corbis is over on YouTube. All right. So, Corbis, can you see this? Are you still there? I don't know whether he's still here or not. Over on YouTube. And any Cobus, I beg your pardon, Cobus. And any other level oneers that are on the call. If you can just let me know if you actually see this. All right. So what I really want you to take away from this particular module is, can you see how the bears were really active here? Then they sort of calmed down. They just kind of disappeared. And then they became a bit more active here, but nowhere near as active as there. So, there's a little bit of anecdotal evidence that, hey, maybe the bears aren't nearly as interested. And then notice the next time the bears ramped up, right, was here, and that's an even lower bar than here. So now we have 1, 2, 3 lower peaks in selling volume bars. Hey, Paul. Can you guys see that? It might be easier to go on your volume tool itself. And I might have to refresh this. Hey, there's Peter. Peter's in the lounge here. And there's Joe. All right. You guys are all popping in. Good. Excellent. So I hope you guys are getting your money's worth. That's absolutely priority number one for me, is I want you to all feel as though you're getting your money's worth. So press me, right? Okay, so let's go in here. And sometimes to see this is actually it's a little easier if you go into the actual indicator. And if you're going to study the bears, right? Just let's turn off the bulls right now. So what are the bears doing? And so 1 high, 2 highs, 3 highs. Can you see how we're making that lower highs? And it's really this second one that we want to follow, right? So this is sort of like the bears are awake. And then, we've been talking about those RSI studies I've been doing recently. On the site, first W stops, whatever. In this case, the bear run. Second W is the breakout. Right, all this kind of conversation. It's basically the same sort of logic. That the first, where was that chart? The first M sort of is, right, the bears are awake. Okay, now the bears are like, oh, wait a minute. And then the second M is sort of like, well, they've completely lost interest. So a really good example. 1, 2, 3 lower highs in the red bars. Beware. The bears might just lose control here, or what I like to call fall asleep. And then if we look at what are the bulls doing? So we'll look at the bulls now. All right, so here you can see the bulls just non-existent. But notice something's starting to change here. Look at all these lows, and then, oh, there's a little bit of interest. And then notice these lows are all higher than these lows. So if anything, what we're starting to get here is a situation where potentially, if volume can break out of that high, the bulls are going to wake up. And hello. You see how the bulls just woke up. Does that make sense? Hey, Joshua. Yeah, there is a volume impetus script, of course, on the site. And as Joshua mentions there, you can grab that. But can you guys see, like, Peter, you're in the lounge here. Can you see how the bulls woke up? Rah, look at me. I'm awake. I'm a bull. So what I need you guys to do now is sort of play connect the dots. So I need for you to be able to see the bears activity, And I need you to see the bulls activity. Then I need you to go down and look at the on balance volume indicator, because all it does is it's just a net, what is it, positive volume or negative volume? And I need you to be able to connect the dots. Can you see this cute little W that came in and how it was confirmed on the bulls waking up? So not only did you have this little W, but you also had this wider W. So there's been basically a power shift here in the market. From the bears in control to the bears falling asleep to the bulls waking up, and the bulls are now in control. So it's actually a really good tutorial there. Just a nice, and really, as Grimm said in class, there's a bunch of components here. So we want to look at things like the structure of OBV. Are we making W's? Are we making M's? As Peter points out, and this is a bit more advanced, but what's the slope of the moving average? Is the moving average sloping up? Is the moving average sloping down? Very simply put, is the OBV index itself above or below the moving average? And do we have any market structure that sort of supports that move up? I think you could make a real argument that your initial burst, and you can see the bulls, right? They were kind of quiet in here, and then they went dormant, and then, they started waking up. And that broke this high. This one bar here broke this high, right? So that was 108 million. So this old high was 88, 84, 96, 137. So this went and broke all of these tops here, right? That one bar there. Then bit of a pause. See if the sellers are going to wake up. Sellers just never showed up. So the bull said, screw you, man. I'm taking over. Roar! So, like I said, there were lots of guys on the site, and I love this. We got one guy. In fact, actually, the Riviera brothers, Oscar just posted a really cool Gantt chart there in the lounge. The Riviera brothers said, damn, this Daniel guy is just a monster trader. And what's so cool is, this isn't rocket science. Everything that I teach you guys on the YouTube page, this shit works. You just have to be patient and disciplined and just apply the principles, and then just log your trades, build your spreadsheets, convince your subconscious of the validity of your setup, and then just go and fucking rape the market. It's incredible to watch this guy at work. It's everything that I could teach, and the great part about it is he's got such a the perfect disposition for him to be just a monster trader. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised. On the site recently, we were kicking around personality types. And, you need to understand that none of us humans are built the same. You better get used to it. And so really the question ultimately, and you can do a whole bunch of personality sort of type tests and quizzes and stuff to figure out what type of person you are. But it turns out that there are some people that are really suited to trading. It turns out this is my personality type. I'm fairly well suited for trading. But I bet you Daniel, when he does his, he's probably like perfect Mr. Trader. But the point being that Daniel was hunting longs through here, and he made some great money. Way to go, Daniel. You're the man! So, hopefully, level 1ers, you get actually a pretty good visual of what does that volume impetus study change look like from the bulls driving the bears. You can see, I'm a bear, damn it! To where the hell did the bears go? They just disappeared. They went to sleep. And the bull said, okay, fine, if you don't want to party, I'm taking over. And up goes price. Right. INTJ. There you go. Okay, cool. So, I think I've given you pretty much an overview of what I'm seeing out of the Bitcoin price right now. I do still like the idea of hunting longs. I will admit the market's kind of having fun with me a little bit right now. But, it's a trader's life. Probably the most important thing for your success is to be able to just limit your losses. When you're going to take losses, you take them. You have your thesis, you have your setup. Does the bot work a good chunk of the time? I think so. I've convinced my subconscious of that fact. Maybe I'm mistaken. The only way we'll know is if I put together a string of losing trades all in a row. After my sort of 90-day reporting period, I'll go back and ask myself whether I still want to be trading the bot. But for now, on the site, I'm just trying to take every bot setup that I see on OKCoin here, or Bitcoin on the OKCoin forwards. So I'm kind of thinking, a bit more up. Our day trading model. I want to be a day trader. He's actually, it's not given permission to. What have I done here? There. He hasn't been given permission to go start hunting longs yet, but dailies are still up. Hourlies are up. We're just waiting on the 4-hour. If this craps out inside bar and then collapses, then okay, maybe nothing. So our little day trader model has been in the closet through this whole slide. The last time we were active was back here on the 6th. So Mr. Day Trader's just been sort of sitting there twiddling his thumbs. But, if our, and the cool part about this script is we can just simply see when the background turns bright green, we'll start getting hunting again. And you can kind of see, this is so cool about this script, right? The shades, we're going purple. We never did go red, thank heavens. But now we're shifting back to sort of dark green. Do we shift back into light green and start hunting longs again? So it'll be fun to keep an eye on this guy, see how he's doing. Yeah, nothing really new to report there. Yep. Okay. So, you got basically a summary of what I'm thinking here right now. It's going to take a little, like off the 4-hour chart, this is going to take a little bit more time to develop, to actually be a bullish setup for me to think about, like, really hunting new longs. And as I said, actually, I think even Joshua, didn't you say that there were some short setups off lower time frames starting to come in here? So I wouldn't be surprised if the harmonic guys are, hitting her when she gets up into these kind of ranges up here. And, as I sort of postulated off of this funny little ABCD thesis, there's Mountain Man sitting up there. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually have to work our way up into there. So congratulations to those people that hunted and took the longs off of the bottom here. Way to go. And actually, you know what? Like somebody in the level 1 was asking, why do you use the 50% rule as a profit objective? So can you see how 50% rule, especially if you were hunting things like double bottoms here? Let's say you said, hey, that Beamish guy, he loves those damn W's, so I'm going to buy the W and I'm going to take profits at 50% rule. That trade going long there, middle of yesterday, it produced now a 2.5 to 1 risk reward. And notice, look how we rallied right up, tagged 50% level, and then just backed right off. So if you want to use like price objectives that have a very high probability of getting hit, and we're not being greedy, we're not talking moon, we're not even postulating new highs. We're just keeping it really simple and sort of very harmonic kind of thinking. 50% rules, WD GAN, price and time move in conjunction. This is the natural level that I think is best to use as profit objectives on trade setups. And as you can see, there's absolutely textbook. And I think those are the kind of trades that Daniel was booking this morning. So congratulations again, Daniel. EKZOTIC1 says, if we will fail, it will be another lower high in higher time frame. Yeah, well, remember I said earlier that what's concerning for me off of the higher time frames is this actually is an inside bar failure here. So, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Way to go, guys who are hunting those, day trade setups off of the bottom there and banged out those wins. But I kind of agree with you, EKZOTIC1. I'm not, this was actually original market structure failure level. And what's fascinating about this, inside bar, it did confirm. What's fascinating I find about this is, you guys remember last year we consolidated around $6,000 for a long period of time, and then we dumped. And who remembers where we bottomed? I thought it was really interesting commentary. No one? This is where I go. Maybe I'm just talking to myself. 3K, yeah, around 3,000, or about 50%, right? So I'm wondering, they've sort of set this market up here off of 9,000. I'm wondering whether, a climactic dump into 4,500 is what really needs to happen here. And that's sort of this, it's interesting. I was talking with some people just recently. I still, believe it or not, think that this is a harmonic pattern that's trying to play itself out. And notice that's right down into sort of 42, 4,300, fill in this big old notch on the profile, bring us back down to the original market structure, tag that 4-year moving average. If cost of production was 3,000 last halvening, then your bottom here this cycle should be double that, right? Somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000, some sort of panic candle dump low into the low 4,000s. I could totally see that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. The only problem that kind of worries me here is we might chop around back and forth in all of this, which sets up the dump into that level on the other side of the halvening. Maybe what ends up happening here, and of course this is going to make me really unpopular on crypto tweets and all that kind of stuff, but maybe, because remember, Bitcoin price likes to top, well, most of these cryptos like to top about a month ahead of the halvening event. So if the halvening event is now in May, somewhere around there, maybe that means that we actually top like somewhere up in here, and then we have a big sort of meltdown down into this level on the other side of the halvening event. I don't know. Anything can happen in this crazy world. But I agree with you. This is off the higher time frames. That's actually a short setup to me. You got your market structure top, you got your counter trend rally against the lows, you got an inside bar failure, and it's basically right off of that market structure level. So I actually agree with you, EKZOTIC. And I think I had said sort of earlier, this is not the best trade location. This is chop central. And of course I get in trouble saying that. Somebody 2 months from now will come and say, well, you said chop central, so that means, whatever. I mean, just what this means to me is I don't like this at all. This is not like high probability setup area. But off the lower time frames, I can completely understand kids having just a blast with this market. You have to, and actually that's sort of a good segue. Let's, I think I'm done talking about Bitcoin. You have a pretty good idea what I think. For whatever that's worth. I did up a cool report, and really, this is sort of the value that you're going to get out of Brian. I mean, sometimes I look like an absolute genius when I just buy these breakouts and away we go, play bots, just take the trade blindly and woohoo, right? And sometimes, just like in Bitcoin past 2 times, I tried to front run the bot, and of course I got busted. So, as I always say with all these videos, I'm never going to give you specifically financial advice, do this, do that. But I'm just going to simply say, hey, this is what I'm doing with my money. But this is a really cool illustration of the various different market participants in the marketplace. And really, at the end of the day, this is a function of you have to sort of figure out what type of market participant you are. Are you, high octane, balls to the wall, bot setups, front running bots, trading W's, banging out, 3-1, 4-1 wins off of, this is a 2-hour chart, swing trade kind of idea? That's fine. And as you can clearly see, this was one hell of a trade, But that's definitely a very specific type of market participant. And you have to define who you are and whether this is the type of trader you are. Do you like not getting much sleep? That's up to you. I mean, crypto, remember, is 24/7. The position traders, I kind of like this kind of approach. Especially this would be, for like a Joe six-pack kind of trader. Where I'm just going to come in. I'm going to try and buy a reload zone after a W's come in. And, you can see the pullback is happening as we speak. I might get filled here today, but I got my bids working at reload zones. And if we break these lows, then I just walk away. No emotion, just statistics. And, 50% rule is kind of like what you saw in that Bitcoin trade earlier. Well, that would be my price objective here. And if I can get filled here and these lows hold and we rally back up to 50%, well, that produces like a 6-to-1 risk reward. Holy for holies. This is definitely a different type of market participant. Then, you got your investors. And the investors, it can even be like little old ladies. I'm just going to put a little bit of my portfolio in it and I'll believe in you guys. You could be investor, hunting weekly W's. I'm going to buy this breakout level and I'm just going to simply risk this window. Or, I'm a weekly little old lady and, all right, it's time to go in and pick up another average purchase. Either way, this operating off this weekly chart, basically, the breakout level is actually all the way up here. I mean, you could even like weekly chart this kind of thing. Like I said, just buy the weekly W's. Good example in the stock market of one that I did recently, because sometimes you just never know where the hell the damn rally's going to be. This one, a weekly breakout, I love the fundamentals. It's in the sector of the market that I want to be in. So I just pulled the trigger and just go grab some, and I don't know where the hell this damn thing's going to go. So sometimes you just got to pull the trigger on the W. It's just the way the market goes. And really what I like and what I'd like to sort of, especially level oneers kind of thinking is you don't have to go and shoot your whole wad here. Maybe throw in a little bit of an order on this level and then let the candle breathe, as they say. And you're going to just go and add to the position on reload zone pullbacks. Perfectly fine. And ironically enough, Mountain Man is the weekly breakout here. And good old line in the sand is just basically the clothesline W breakout. So I do see this happens a lot. So that's why sometimes I actually like to just buy the breakout. In this particular case, of course, it being, crypto. Extremely volatile. I think this was that that lower time frame swing trade I just showed you. I think that was the end of that move. But if you had bought this weekly W and said, Brian, I'm just going to risk to the bottom of this range, I really wouldn't have a problem with that. But you got to be able to handle some volatility. If you'd said, Brian, I love weekly W's. Now that this is confirmed, I'm now going to go throw my bid in at reload zones. That's kind of like this position trader guy. Totally fine. Love it. You're like, well, Brian, I don't like to sit there and just have my money working. I want to trade setups off the lower time frames where there's lots of octane and I'm very active. Fine. There's a million different ways to skin this cat. And I thought that was a really cool tweet that I put out through the weekend. And, this is what I sort of was alluding to earlier in the conversation is I'm seeing a lot more of this in altcoin land. I haven't seen this kind of action in a while. And as I had sort of said earlier, um, you know, I, I follow a certain amount of people on Twitter because I think they're fairly knowledgeable, and I think there is a core of people that have a nice solid knowledge base, and they have sort of a good sort of karmic, they're good people. They're not trying to screw you over. So I'm sort of constantly just watching what they're talking about, and somebody mentioned this EOS this morning. And I gotta say, this is basically everything that we teach in our course. You're never gonna be right 100% of the time. Just get used to that. That's just life. So really, it's just a question of, okay, when you are gonna go in and take a risk in the market, is there any way you can sort of find situations where the odds might be, number one, you can define a window that you can clearly state, look at, if I buy here and the price goes below this level, then whatever thesis I had about this has been disproven, so I can get out, right? Relatively small risk window. And then number two, you've seen this happen so many times in the past that that the odds of these lows holding, if you go and buy here and the price exploring higher, the odds are actually in your favor. And that's really what everything about being a trader is about. And, especially when you go through bear markets, there's an old expression they say, in bull markets, everybody makes money. In bear markets, nobody makes money. So what ends up happening through these kind of markets is, as we're trying to find bottoms, the first few attempts at bottoms end up not working. What I find really interesting, and this is almost exactly how it always goes, is, a few fits and starts. Maybe you have one right call, then another wrong call, then a right call, then a wrong call. 50%, if you have 2-to-1 risk reward, ironically enough, you're profitable. But the public starts going, oh, well, why the hell are we bothering to trade this? Why not just hodl? And I'm actually seeing that kind of conversation now. People have kind of lost interest in learning technical analysis because they don't understand that it's not a price prediction tool. It's just really, ironically enough, and I heard somebody recently say this, that really technical analysis is nothing more than a risk management tool to try and, identify windows where if you did take a risk, and there's no real guarantee that just by taking that risk you're going to be right. I've clearly demonstrated that a couple times this weekend. That you have a relatively small window that identifies that your thesis was wrong and you better get out. That's ironically enough the biggest sort of benefit of TA. So anyway, long and short of it here, I sort of mentioned this earlier, whether it be things like Doge turning off a very beautiful structure. Kevin and I are in this SIS and storage recently, but on balance, I think their bottoms look relatively okay. Some of these names, Decred, popped up violently. We're just patiently waiting for this thing to calm down a bit so we can consider buying. I've had my eye on this Ubic for a while. I mean, look at that chart, guys. I mean, holy crap. Look at that. This is ridiculous. Nobody's interested in this thing whatsoever right now. Everybody should look at this and go, maybe it's not going to be today or tomorrow, but there's going to be some sort of rally up into this area at some point down the road. So anyway, I've been watching Ubic really closely here lately, and look at the fight going on here. Reload zones within reload zones here. I mean, just a massive war going on here right now. Very, very light volume though. So, and there's also another good analogy, right? Not a good idea to short a dull market. If you've ever heard that expression before, if you haven't, write it down. Never short a dull market. And I'm feeling like the altcoin market is a dull market right now. So, for whatever it's worth, I actually think there are some really, really interesting opportunities in here. Yeah, I suppose if we pop on over, well, where is Ubik? Ubik's listed in, doesn't have that many places it's listed though, eh? Yeah, they're only on Trex. So there you go. Merry Christmas. And right away, half of the audience goes, fuck that idea. And I don't blame you if you're like, oh man, I'm not going down that road again. I do not blame you whatsoever. Caveat emptor, right? You better know what you're getting involved with when you're playing the altcoin market. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is Venture Cap 101. Okay, so, on balance, like I said, I think there are some interesting names. Really, I don't know what the fundamental story is this, right? I don't know. But what I do know is, like as I kind of said to the boys there when I was replying to their tweets and stuff, is a good trade is a good trade is a good trade. Whether you look at it from Ichi Boom Boom, an RSI perspective, or you look at it from Brian's reload zones and volume impetus and Willie stupid and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this thing's trying to speak to us right now. So, not investment advice, but you can definitely I think you could probably take pretty high confidence that Mr. Beamish is going to be bidding on some of this, if he isn't already. Could I pull the trigger at this level in particular? I think probably I'm thinking more along the lines of, is there any topic, any concept that I'm probably, the odds are pretty good that I'm going to be employing for stink bids? Something like a reload zone. Notice so 78.6 is basically down against this original bottom. So, maybe work some stink bids. So what is that? $2.70. It's not a terrible area, especially with that big tail there. So, keep your eyes peeled. Could you justify just going and buying the W here? Sure. It's a nice W. Could I justify going and paying this price here? I think maybe I'd temper my enthusiasm from that perspective. But definitely like reload zone bids down here. Nice little FU against those lows. That would be awesome. So, okay, well, I hope you guys got some value out of today. I've been ranting here for about an hour or so. I'm not quite sure, Andre, about price predictions themselves. I think on balance, for the time being, I would just simply, and I think this is his study, I would be thinking these levels here in the short term, and the fact that we just did paint an inside bar fail here. I'm thinking lower here in general, but I could understand if this thing firms up, a nice little rally up into like 12,000 neighborhood. Once we hit those levels, then I'd reassess. But in essence, these would be my two sort of target windows right now for Bitcoin. So I hope that helps. Like I said, ironically enough, I don't think the opportunity right now is in Bitcoin. I think the opportunity is in all this kind of stuff. And I mean, look at that auger. Holy crap! I put that tweet out at the beginning of the weekend. I mean, was there some money to be made there? You tell me. Find those weekly W's. That's what I'm telling you, folks. This thing, the whole reason why I got interested and why this thing actually came up to my attention was because of that big old weekly W that was painted there. So I don't know what the hell I did with that. Weekly W. This is what caught my attention, right? And those kind of insane blast off rallies can happen when you start seeing this kind of stuff. So that's encouraging. Okay, I'm going to stop blabbing away here. I hope you guys felt like you got some good value. I'm exceedingly pleased to see the dashboard is filling out, and trade tools that I've been talking about wanting to get going in earnest are rocking and rolling. And of course, we've got this incredible catalyst coming up here in 2020. So it's going to be a bumpy ride either way. Strap on your seatbelts. If anything, this is the time to get your plan all in order. Just try and, really learn that sort of 3 unrelated reasons for a trade and risk management. Somebody even today was like tweeting out, "Well, this is a good reason why you don't throw all your money in an altcoin, because like an altcoin just blew up." So risk management critical here. And let's see if we can just put you guys in a position where you're positive, you're feeling optimistic, you understand setups, you understand risk management, and you're just in the market having fun, following your plan. And when I see that from site people, man, it is so cool. Gotta tell you, it's totally awesome. All right, everybody, wish me luck with the boy this afternoon. The great part about it is Liam doesn't give a rat's ass about Bitcoin or the market or soybeans or broiler chickens anyway. So it's a bit of a reset for me. I can take my mind completely off the market. So be sure to tune in for our little market brief video that we do Monday to Friday. It's about 15 minutes or so in length. To sort of get any updates on anything that's sort of happening through the week. Of course, consider joining the site if you'd like to have a nice long hour and a half discussion about the markets. We do Monday to Friday. And also, too, as you can sort of see, the tools that I think that we really need to take us into that next phase of TRI, signaling systems, automated setup reporting, actually building your own screening systems on TRI and letting us do all the work for you, and you just get a nice little polite email in your inbox on a morning, first thing in the morning, with all your setups and criteria that you like to see in trades ideas presented to you. All that stuff is coming along really nicely, and I think we're setting ourselves up for a really interesting 2020. Okay, everybody, have yourselves a great day. Of course, by all means, if you are interested in learning about how we do this and act professionally in the market, consider joining the school. I think the people that are in the Level 1 program would probably attest that they're getting pretty good value for their money spent. And of course, I even said that to them today. That is absolutely number one priority for me, as you guys feel as though, I invested in TRI, I invested in this Mr. Beamish. I got some really good value out of the material that he presented to me. So, okay, everybody, all the best. Have yourselves a great day, and bye for now.